Welcome to the world of nutrition. I am so happy to have the one and only Marilyn Lamer joining us again as host of World of Nutrition. This is part of the World of Ability podcast network, and we are so happy to have her joining us on the second Friday of the month. And this is at 1 o'clock Hawaii time. So I'm thrilled she's here, and she has some amazing folks joining in tonight as well. So here is Marilyn. Welcome. So good to see you.
Aloha. Thank you so much, Sue. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the World of Nutrition podcast, Nutrition for Your Body, Mind, and Soul. Today, I have two amazing guests, which I'm super thankful for. The first is Derrick Barnicote, and he's the owner and lead practitioner of Naluhia flotation therapy and energy healing arts in downtown Hilo. With decades of training in Qigong meditation and energy medicine, he helps clients reduce stress, improve focus, and restore balance through personalized healing and float therapy experiences. Derrick, welcome to the World of Nutrition podcast. Please tell us a little bit more.
Hey, Marilyn, great to see you. Yeah, I'm the sole owner and operator currently of Naluhia Flotation Therapy and Energy Healing Arts. Um, Primarily, first and foremost, we are providing flotation therapy, which is also known as the old school kind of term would be like sensory deprivation therapy. Um, and a new school kind of term for the scientific research, if you're out there trying to Google and figure out things about it, is reduced environmental stimulation therapy, which is the acronym REST. And as well, I am a medical Qigong practitioner. I have a clinic room through that doorway with the light in it back there. And I also teach Qigong exercise classes. Medical Qigong is kind of really simply put or superficially put is like acupuncture without needles. We use the same philosophies and concepts, theories that an acupuncturist or any traditional Chinese medicine practitioner would use, but we have a little bit different perspective on how what we're treating and how we look at things. But we don't use needles. So we use a different palette of techniques, but meridians, points, dantians, five elements, yin and yang, things like that, that people know commonly about traditional Chinese medicine we use. And then the exercises are exercises, kind of like yoga or martial arts or anything like that. Um, yeah.
Amazing. What made you get into like all of the modalities and how did they work together? Or did you do all of them at once or um
No way. Yeah, so it's a
okay.
long journey. I'll try to, I'm somebody who can talk a lot. So if you have any questions, interrupt me, please. And excuse me if I'm talking too much. But yeah, I started when I was 16. Actually, just be honest, I was diagnosed with ADD, and I was on ADD kind of medication and was sort of struggling with school, not horribly, but it was something to be concerned about. And I ended up going to an alternative school outside of Boston, and they offered Kundalini yoga and meditation as athletic credits, which I found helped me out more than any of the pharmaceuticals that I was being prescribed at the time. So I ended up being able to quit those, and I just learned how to meditate. I was meditating 4 days a week. The other sport I did was like in this wintertime, I would go snowboarding. We had like a ski bus and I would go snowboarding. But other than that, I was doing meditation and Kundalini yoga.
What is
Um,
Kundalini yoga for those? I mean, I feel like people know what yoga is. Maybe people don't know what Kundalini yoga is.
if you want to, I mean, Kundalini yoga, a lot of times it's thought of as like a hardcore form of yoga. I don't like to use the term hardcore too much. Also, this type of Qigong I teach, sometimes people say it's like a hardcore Qigong or hard style Qigong. I just think it's it has an intense experience to it, but it is a full-fledged form of yoga. So it contains all eight limbs if you want to go that deep with it. If you go to class once a week, generally you're going to find pranayama, which is breath work, and you're going to find that they will hold postures for several minutes, usually over 3 minutes. Um, and they'll make you sweat a lot, and you learn and you practice with your eyes closed, so you learn to kind of be in this meditative mindset while you are going through the exercises and kind of putting yourself under a certain amount of pressure. There's also always Shavasana, which everyone loves. You get to lay down and relax. And there's also always usually meditation involved with a Kundalini yoga class. That's on a very surface level. You can go really deep with it though. And then you can get into more lifestyle things and diet and philosophy and theories and so it's a well-rounded form of yoga. It was taught by Yogi Bhajan originally in the United States. He was a Sikh man from Punjab region, northern India, but it comes from a more ancient lineage that goes back into Vedic and yogic lineages going back beyond Yogi Bhajan, but he was the one who kind of brought it to the West. Um, so yeah, I mean that's a real abbreviated way of explaining it. There's a lot to explain.
Yeah. Oh, so you're doing that at 16. That's amazing. And then what
Yeah,
came?
so that was where I started. That started brought me into meditation. So that's my most important thing that I want to share with people is this meditative mind and how to cultivate that and how to experience that because I believe it's kind of like I consider it kind of like mental or energetic hygiene. It's like learning to take a shower or brush your teeth. It becomes something very integral in your life once you wrap your head around exactly what it is. And a lot of people kind of understand, and we all get a taste of it just being human. But we can deepen that experience and it can provide a new perspective and dimension to life. Um, so yeah, that's what connects everything I do is meditation. Back then it was the first step on a long journey. I went to art school in Chicago. I didn't do a lot of meditation or yoga there. Moved to Atlanta. I did a little Tai Chi there. And then I moved to New York and I started studying Transcendental Meditation at the Transcendental Meditation Institute. And my ex at the time, she went to India and did a yoga teacher training in India, Hatha yoga teacher training. So every morning we were doing Hatha yoga and meditating. And I was like, I need to get back into Kundalini. So through that, I sought out my teacher. She had moved from Boston to New York and opened her own studio. So I went back to her, and that's when I became a teacher. And through her, actually, I was introduced to Qigong as well, the specific style of Qigong that I practice, which is called Kobang Qigong. Kobang is a Korean rooted word, but it means ancient way. Um, and so, yeah, it's a Taoist style Qigong. It's what a lot of people would consider it. And yeah, and I got that from her, and that's what I teach now to people. And yeah, I don't know. Is there any other questions?
Well, and you can share about the float because my
Oh yeah,
our
of course.
friend
The float.
Claire loves
Oh
your
yeah.
float, and she's always telling me about how
Oh yeah.
amazing it is.
Yeah, so flotation, I first was introduced to that in 2006 in New York City. I moved to Hawaii from Brooklyn, New York in 2015. In 2006, I floated at this place called Blue Light Flotation, and it was just blew me away. Like this guy had built this really perfectly pitch black, silent room. I could hear my heartbeat and just my own breathing. It was like hypnotizing me, and I just came out of that feeling like for a week, totally like floating still, like for a week. So I was like, this is amazing for the nervous system and a digital detox from like hyperstimulation that we all are dealing with in this new age with social media and digital media and we're constantly stimulated and yeah. So what flotation is just to explain it real quick is um, a basically we have an 8.8 foot by 4.5 foot wide tub. You enter through a shower. Everyone has a shower before they get in there. And there's 175 gallons of water with 1,000 pounds of magnesium Epsom salts dissolved in it. So it's more saline than the Dead Sea. And everyone knows the Dead Sea, you can float on the surface of the Dead Sea effortlessly. Anyone of any shape and size can float on the surface of this water. So it's like a zero gravity kind of environment. And to add to that, we're limiting three senses. They used to be called as sensory deprivation tanks. It's a little bit of a scary word. We're not depriving anyone of their senses. That wouldn't be pleasant for anyone, but we're limiting three major senses. So sight, hearing. So it's a soundproof and lightproof room, but also the water and air is kept at skin temperature. Um, So when, that's a little bit lower than 98.6, right? So it starts at around 96 during a session, will go down to 93. People's skin temperature will fall somewhere within 90, that range. Um, when the skin temperature meets the water and air temperature, your brain gets some relief from gauging what the temperature is around the body and regulating the biology based on that. And your brain is doing that 24/7. So these are three things that your brain is using a lot of energy to do. When you can limit these three things, your brain gets that extra energy to do whatever else it needs to do, what it might have been neglecting throughout the day. So people dealing with stress, trauma, anxiety, emotions, they might have a very deep meditative experience. People who are insomniac, lacking sleep, 1 hour in there, research says 1 hour in there is equivalent to 5 hours of sleep. So they'll feel very refreshed, like they've got a lot of rest. But also the magnesium, and magnesium Epsom salts is a trace mineral most people are deficient in. And a lot of people it's really trendy right now to take those as supplements. When you get this kind of macro dose of this, magnesium is used in almost every chemical interaction in the body. But one thing that research has shown is it helps regulate blood pressures by smoothing the blood flow and relaxing the muscles of the heart. It also is reducing inflammation systemically. So it's reducing chronic pain and helps the meditative aspect can help with neuroplasticity. So regenerating nerve cells, reconnecting synapses and things like that. So people with post-concussion syndrome, hypertension, high blood pressure, fibromyalgia, arthritis, these type of things will get a lot of physical relief. And people dealing with stress and emotions, or anyone who just wants, maybe you're a meditator and you want to like kind of reset, maybe you're struggling, having a hard month or something where you're just listening to your monkey mind a lot or something. This is a deep dive. It's kind of like an auto deep dive. Eventually, somewhere within that hour, you go into this deep meditative state, and that kind of can help you get that rhythm back, that kind of um, deep meditative state back. Um,
So it's
yeah,
an
so
hour
that's
session. That was actually one of my questions.
yeah. There's two options right now: 1 hour or 90 minutes.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and it seems like a long time, but I remind people that I can't remember how many hours we have in a week, but what it's like 170 something hours in a week. So I just remind people taking an hour for yourself to tune inward. Out of all, you could go for the rest of your week and go back into your habits and whatever, your neuroses. You could try that out. But you take 1 hour, just take 1 hour, for yourself, and it can really have a lasting effect because actually what happens inside the tank is secondary to how it integrates into your life and the afterglow and that the effect that it has on your daily life. I suggest actually, it sounds counterintuitive, but for first time floaters, I suggest a 90-minute float because your nervous system has an instinct to not want you to fall asleep in water. It makes sense, right? So you kind of have to train your nervous system, and it's common. It's some people they're adept, maybe they're really daily meditators or something. Some people will go right into it, and they just go right deep into it, and for the whole hour they're in there. But for most people, first float, you might find 20 minutes, you'll kind of be like whoosh, get this physical relaxation and mental silence. And then you'll snore, twitch, you know, you'll have a thought, an intrusive thought, like, is Derrick keeping track of the time? How long have I been in here? Da, 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 and you'll, want to move and get up. And I encourage people to push through that. And the reason why that 90-minute session is good for a beginner is because a lot of times for beginners, they do that for 20, 30 minutes. Then they're starting to go deep and really get in there. And then the music comes up and they're like, oh man, I was just getting into it. It's already over. So when you do the 90 minutes, you have 30 minutes to mess around and snore and wiggle and wake yourself up, and stretch or whatever. And then you go for a whole hour and your nervous system has now got kick-started like a training, like next time I come in, next time you come in, your nervous system will know this is safe. I can sleep here. I'm
oh.
not going to drown, because you can fully fall asleep in there. There's no way you can drown. I mean, even if you're a type of person who rolls over on their side or rolls over on their belly when they're sleeping, you have to like kind of engage your core because you're floating. Imagine that. You have to engage your core and grab the grab bar and kind of twist around. So I doubt anyone's going to do that while they're asleep. So it's safe.
Fascinating. Yeah, so I've never done it before. However, my friend Claire has done it. She says she gets a lot of different downloads and messages, and so I'm just curious. Like people use this for meditating or just going within.
Yeah, that's my use of it. There's people, a lot of times people will come in for very, and say this is actually goes a common theme for uh medical Qigong and Qigong, the exercises, is people will come for very physical reasons. And then, they'll find that they have another result, which is very mental, spiritual, um, yeah, mind results and spiritual results that they'll say, "Oh, I didn't even know I needed that." Like they get a taste of something deeper that they're like, "Oh man." And that sometimes is the root of physical pain that you're dealing with. Things tend, if you have emotions or you have stagnating chi that you're not dealing with, it's going to manifest eventually in some kind of pain or some kind of something somewhere. Eventually, it's going to physically manifest. So, a lot of times, that's that little Achilles heel or whatever in that thing that you're trying to get rid of that just makes it happen. It's a subtle thing, but it can make it a lot happen, like a butterfly effect. It can be greatly underestimated, that state of mind. And yeah, people get downloads and stuff like that. Another thing that was flotation therapy was used for is expediting language learning for like the military. There's some studies where they would play language tapes in the tank while they were in that meditative state, and they found that they were able to cut the time in half. Like they got to go to another country. Also, the military used it for post-concussion syndrome. Um, so when, because they would get sometimes, nowadays we know more about concussions. You can get like full body concussions, not just your brain, but your whole nervous system. And so flotation is great for that, regenerating the nerve cells and resetting yourself after a post-concussion syndrome.
Wow, I did not know all of that, so that is amazing. And
Yeah.
so what is the recommended like routine for people doing floating?
There's a lot of different routines, I think. But I would say one thing to be aware of, there's actually two things I could immediately think of to be aware of. Um, if you float, like floating, so if you're dealing with something very serious, maybe like if you think about hypertension or you have nerve damage, I've had clients with brain surgery, things like that. If you want to deal with something like that, coming in once a week, maybe not for the rest of your life, but you can get more integrated results that are more stuck into your life. If you come in once every 2 weeks, that's a good clip. Once a month is a good clip. Once you get out to once every 3 months, it's like your first float every time. You kind of have to train your nervous system. You'll find your nervous system can kind of forget. Um, and be sort of shocked again, like, oh, don't fall asleep here, don't fall, that whole routine again. So that's something to think about. Other thing is I at one point was floating like 3 or 4 times a week. One thing to think about is dehydration because this is salt water. So fresh water you absorb. Salt water is going to bring the water opposite direction. So you got to keep up with drinking a lot of water. If you float once a week, it's not really that big of an issue. What would happen with me is floating 4 times a week. If I didn't keep up with water, maybe I might have a little ping of a headache, and I'm like, ooh, I'm getting dehydrated a little bit. But that's only two kind of things to think about as far as developing a routine. I love personally to float once a week, and I don't have any sort of dramatic physical ailment or anything that I'm dealing with right now, but that's just, I like to meditate every day and I like to float once a week. It's my ideal situation.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that. Once
and
a
it's
week.
sort of like, give a metaphor for it, that I learned through Kundalini yoga. There's something called the King's, I think it's called the King's Crimson Robes or something like that. But it's about, in India when they dye cloth, it'll start out white and they dip it in the dye and it'll still look white. And then maybe they dip it in there 40 times and it looks light blue, but it's washing out in the water. You dip it 100 times, it's a darker blue, but it's still washing out in the water. do it 300 times. It's now it's indigo blue, but it's still running in the water when you wash it. You do that 1,000 times, it's permanently dyed in there. So what I'm saying is this has to do with frequency, right? This is frequency. Uh, the the clip that you do it at, like the after effects last a certain amount of time. Eventually they will fade. The afterglow will fade. But if you can kind of line it up so that you're resetting that afterglow effect again, as the other one's fading, you can kind of get these cumulative results. And those are ones that are hard to put into words. I could speak forever on those, but not really get to exactly what that is. But if you're someone like Claire who came in once a week for like a year, I remember she came on like her 12th time and she's like, "You've been telling me all this stuff." And it was kind of like, I knew what you were talking about. I heard the words, but then I had this aha moment, and she was like, all of a sudden it just made sense, and so yeah, there's a lot to that cumulative result, but the thing is the immediate result is so nice that a lot of people think it's one and done. Like I know some people have had life-changing experiences on their first float and then they don't come back again, and it's like, no, you gotta keep cultivating this, you gotta keep watering that plant, so it can grow, then it's a
That's so
tree and it's
powerful.
there and it's a thing. you know
Yeah, I'm so
So,
fascinated. Well, actually, Claire was like, reach out to Derek. And I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, let me reach out to Derek. So
yeah, that's
perfect.
awesome.
Thank you so much. And please
Yeah.
tell our listeners if you have any events coming up or how can people find you?
So Naluhia Flotation, it moved locations from 120 Kiave in downtown Hilo. Now it's at 639 Kino Ole inside of Hilo Sento House. Hilo Sento House is it's a Japanese inspired bathhouse situation with cold plunges, hot plunges, saunas, infrared saunas, and my business is located inside there. We used to have one room, now we have two open, and there's going to be a third one. Um, so you can book at www.naluhiafloats.com. And also, I teach classes. I teach Kobang Qigong classes on Wednesdays at 5:30. They're about an hour and a half because I include like at least 20 minutes of meditation in there. Um, so it's about an hour Qigong, 20 minutes meditation. If you want to come to that, just be prepared to sweat, bring a change of clothes, and but something that you're comfortable moving in and sitting cross-legged in to meditate. And that's about it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, now I'm like, I need to get to Hilo to visit you and Claire and have my float experience.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you've seen the float room,
fascinating.
I think, but next time you gotta try it out.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much, Derek. I appreciate
Yeah,
you.
good to see you again.
You
Thank
too.
you for including me.
Absolutely. All right. And our next guest is Brian Murray. And he is a leadership and mindset coach who helps high performers unlock their true potential through disciplined foundational growth. After decades in personal development, he now guides others to move beyond control and self doubt into confidence, connection, and purpose. He is also the author of Choose to Master, Connect, Thrive, releasing this spring. Oh, I'm super excited for you, Brian. Tell us a little bit more about what you do. Welcome.
Aloha, Marilyn. How are you? Thank you for having me. I'm doing very well, very well. I'm here in beautiful San Diego this week, so on a little bit of a travel trip. It's been fantastic. Um, Thank you for sharing the information about the book, which is coming out this spring. I'm very excited about that. And as you shared, my primary focus is leadership coaching, as well as, and leadership can be divided into a couple of different categories. Obviously, the first generic thought is, I'm leading a business, I'm leading a group. Now, that's very important, but a lot of what I focus to initially is self-leadership. How are you managing the one? And then we take that and apply it to the many, and that's kind of the focus of what I do. I also focus on that in a couple of different ways. The first way being what I call reflective coaching versus directive. So less initially of directing you where you need to go. First of all, looking backwards to say, hey, where have I been? What's been working? What's not working? Why is it not working? What's all of that rooted in? So spend some time so that we get, and I would say if there's one big buzzword that probably is a thread through everything that I do, is I'm going to call it clarity. And that would be the primary thing that I focus to is clarity. And that's getting clarity on, things again that are working well for you, things that are not working well. Why is it not working well? And then figuring out now how do we go about changing those things, redirecting those things, and then putting yourself on a different path, a different trajectory to where we want to get to from a goal setting standpoint. It's interesting in this scenario because obviously we're looking a lot more internally and how can we, connect with ourselves more spiritually. And a lot of leadership pieces are obviously more mental, in some tied to some of the emotions, uh, less tied to that more spiritual piece. However, I do think there's a definite tie for what I do. And that is, I really do focus in on when I'm talking about getting clarity, a lot of the times that is just to reduce that internal discord that we have that's wrapped around many, many things that may be happening, whether it's a generational thing from family's side, whether it's something happening in our personal life, marriage, relationships, or in our business lives and really understanding what's driving that and getting to the root cause of those type things because it's really hard to get clarity to understand where you want to go and how you want to get there if you have this internal thing that's just boiling over and not able to get that resolved. So that is one of the big pieces that within my coaching I really focus to. The coaching is also really divided into two primary silos or groups. A lot of what I would do, and I would say about 60% is the individual coach. So it's one-to-one scenarios. I have a couple of one-to-one platforms or programs that an individual can engage with. And then I also have what I'm going to call my micro group. This really comes into play more in a business setting, where maybe there is a team and there's 6 or 8 individuals on this team. How do we get them to work the most effective, the most efficient ways with different personalities, different backgrounds, different experiences, and being able to get clarity on that, tie it all together so they work more smoothly and really understand how that goes. Those are my two primary areas that I focus in on a lot.
I like that. So when you talked about the micro group coaching team, are they all part of the same company, or you're bringing in individuals from different companies that are leaders and then they're working as a team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've actually had both scenarios work like that. I would say most times it is within the same organization. However, I have done a few, we'll call it small cohorts, where I'm bringing in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 leaders from different organizations and what that really gives them an opportunity to do is hear and learn and share what other people are doing to manage their organizations, to manage their teams. And it a lot of the times just brings about this awareness and this light of, I never thought about that from that perspective, or I can't believe you're doing that. Is that actually working? And as we work our way through, the 6 or 8 sessions where we get together and go through that, everyone basically creates their way of doing it that's going to work for their group, their unique scenario, their unique industry. There is not a right way or a wrong way to do it. And that's the beauty of it. And that's a lot of what I teach you individually. We live in a society now, we have social media, we have so many other things where we feel judged, in some fashion or another. And we feel, well, I need to do things this way. I have to be seen that way. And that again can create that internal strife that you start to feel, and that can weigh on you emotionally, spiritually, all of those different ways. So being able to start to have ways of deflecting that, reducing that pressure that you feel, and just living in more of that truly authentic self helps also bring about a lot of clarity. And from there, again, that's where you can start to set the goals, make the steps to achieve some of those goals. And then importantly, and as I talk about in my book, where I have master, I talk about connect and also talk about thrive. The connect piece is really focused to relationships, and that's relationships in general, not just your intimate relationships. And there's a lot of focus in there on being able to communicate better, have more understanding, all these different things that, because again, that's another area in a lot of our lives that I think we run up against friction sometimes. And we want to, dig in and say, my way is the right way and your way is the wrong way, versus going, okay, how can we figure out how to move forward where you have your stance, you have your beliefs, I'm entitled to mine, but that doesn't mean we can't get along. We can't find some type of common ground, some type of understanding to be able to move forward and accomplish and succeed and be shoulder to shoulder versus face to face and in a conflict type scenario. So I focus a lot to that piece as part of my coaching practice as well. Not just you, but how are you interacting with those around you, and what are you doing to build, strengthen those connections and those relationships?
Yeah, I think that's actually so powerful because it's like it's us versus the problem or the issue instead of me versus you, right? It's like
Mhm.
when people see it as like us versus the problem, then the egos can be able to dissolve and we can just open up and create more synergy. I think it's just beautiful in that sense because I was very scarcity mindset before I started doing self development. So I was just like my ego was just I had to be right all the time, and if I wasn't, it was not pretty. And then now I'm just
Mhm.
like, okay, let's come out of curiosity. Like, what are you thinking? Like, here's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? And then just coming up with what is the best solution. And then I'm like, I don't even always have to be right. Like, I just want the best solution for this issue or this problem that's coming up.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful.
Yeah. I teach a module, and part of what I do called missed communication. So miss, and I put a ED on the end of it and dash communication. And it's really focused to just that. So much of the time we're focused to giving an answer before we actually hear what the other person's saying. So we're really not listening because we're already, coming up with our rebuttal before they even finish. And in that instance, you're missing some of what they're communicating. The other piece is I always look at it from the standpoint of look at it from the standpoint of you want to seek understanding, not agreement. Because you don't necessarily have to always agree. That is not the objective. You want to understand, and it goes back to what you just mentioned about that natural curiosity and approaching it from that standpoint. And I think that's one of the best ways to start to build better bridges, have more authentic relationships because the people don't feel like they have to treat you or manage you in a certain way because they're much more comfortable to be authentic with you. You can be more authentic with them. And that again gives a strength to relationship that I think is very, very important.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Seek understanding. So what came to my mind when you were saying that is you know, um, just the stories that we tell ourselves versus what actually happened.
Mhm.
So I realized that there's so many relationships, I'll speak from like in my life where I was hearing, okay, please do it this way. And then in my brain, I'm thinking, I'm not good enough instead of no, like I'm being, I'm getting feedback and I can do something to correct it and move forward. And so that's been a,
Yes.
a process to be able to seek understanding and not take offense and just be curious. Okay, they care about me. They want, you know, things to be done in a certain way and we can have a conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely true. And it's funny, we just came out of the holidays not too long ago, and a lot of people may be able to relate to that sitting around the dinner table, whatever it might be with family, and you're reflecting back, oh, remember 10 years ago when we did so and so. And the two people will sitting talking about it, experience the same thing, but their recollection and how they tell the story can be so different. They're looking at you like, what are you talking about? I remember it like this, right? And that's a prime example of exactly what we mean. Even though you might have even been there at the same time and had gone through the same exact experience. How you experienced it versus how I experienced it can be greatly different, and just seeking to understand, hey, what is your mindset? How did you see that? And instead of saying we need to both agree that we saw it this way, and that's not your approach that you want to take. But it's really fascinating when you get into those moments, and I had a couple of those throughout the holidays. I'm like, what? Let me see and understand how you saw it because this is how I saw it, and and we got a good laugh out of that. But I think that's very important.
That was so funny because, the event, I'm thinking about the Super Bowl. There was a Super Bowl. It's one experience. How many people had different feelings and different experiences from this one event, right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
get it. Yeah.
absolutely. So the other thing I want to transition to here, just given the time we have, is I want to talk about control. And control is one thing that I think drives a lot of what we want to have or do and or control in our lives. We want to feel like what we're doing, the decisions we're making, the choices we make, et cetera, we have control over and the outcome. And that's one of the things from a clarity standpoint that I really work to is to help people understand that the control piece you have is in getting it from the beginning, trying to understand why you want to do what you want to do, what the motivations are behind it, these different type of things, making that decision, taking the action step. Once that step has been taken, the outcome of how that may go actually becomes technically out of your control. And that's really a hard place for a lot of people to get comfortable with. And again, so that's that whole internal stress. I feel like this has to go a certain way. And then we start to put the pressure on ourselves of if it doesn't go the way that I really thought it should go, I failed. And now you're, oh, woe is me, and I'll never do that again, and et cetera, et cetera. So then you stop versus continuing to press forward. And that is one of the biggest distractors that I think happens in people's lives is they've had these opportunities, they have these goals, these different things they like to accomplish. But that road is never going to be a straight line. There's going to be, some bob and some weaves, some lefts and some right, and some ups and some downs. And as they go through that, I think it's important that you learn from those things. You take the lessons from it. You say, let me tweak this, let me try it again because letting it stop you, obviously, you will never get there. And being able to get that balance within yourself and I divide it really into three things. I draw out a circle. You've got that inner circle, an outer circle on that, and then the very outside. And the inner circle piece is the area that I say you 100% control. Your action, your thoughts, all of that is you. Then you have what I call in the next circle, which is influence. How much influence do you have over the outcome? So you can start to assert some things there, right? Then there's the last piece of the band of that circle, and that's where you have no control. You have no control, you have no influence. What we tend to do is take our energy, our effort, our focus, and we're putting it on that outer band, which is the wrong place to put that because we don't have any control or influence in that particular situation. So what we need to be able to do is start to peel that back and put the 80-20 rule into place. 80% on what you do control, about 20% on where you have influence, and the rest, learn to let it fall where it's going to fall. Because, and that again, from energy, from keeping you centered, from having some balance for yourself, can really change just where your energy is, your energy level, how your energy is focused, and where you're channeling your energy in those different situations.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying as far as like doing things that we've never done before, we sometimes think, oh, the maybe the worst case scenario that would happen. However, something that I've done repeatedly over and over is if I'm doing something new, something scary for me, and it even if the outcome doesn't turn out the way that I thought it was, I'm like, I still lived. And so I'm able to regulate my nervous system and say, it's okay. Like
Yeah.
I still lived. I attempted something new, and I can make a different choice and see if that
Yep.
one results in something else.
Yeah, very true. And I want to go back to your previous guest, Derrick. He mentioned something there about they come once and they don't come back again. And the same thing comes from the type of development, whether it's leadership type coaching or individual coaching and development. There's not a magic fairy dust that I can sprinkle on you and all of a sudden it's there. It is a journey. It's a continuation of the work. And the reason that it really is important for us as individuals is we evolve and we change just based on time, experience. I had a recent individual that I was working with, and their life drastically changed in about 18 months. From getting married to finding out they're going to have their first child to new career, all in about 18-month span. So everything that you were thinking 18 months ago is now totally reframed in your life. How did you start to go about developing the new tools, the new resources, and the new focus that you need to deal with this version of you versus this version of you? So there's that journey that's part of it as well. So just getting people to realize that it's not a one time done and done kind of thing. It's this ongoing journey down this winding road of life and the changes that may happen as you go along that journey, and being able to be flexible and adaptive so that you have that resilience, that bounce back capability, and you're not carrying all of that within you because that weight is can get really heavy.
Yeah, and I always say, like, if you want to get to your goals faster, go with a coach because a coach is just going to help keep you accountable. And when we have somebody to, check in with, like, that just, it's like, oh, shoot, I'm going to be checking in with my coach. Let me make sure I did my action step for the day or the week or whatever it is. So I was
Yeah.
going to ask, how long do you have your coaching sessions with people for?
Yeah. My basic package is actually a 12 session program, and it can be done in either 6 months, so two a month, or I can do a 4 month where we do three a month. So it's really driven by their urgency and their ability to schedule those time slots. Each slot is roughly an hour. So that's the one-to-one where we actually physically have conversations like this. Then there's also some work modules, some different things, some activities and exercises that I will assign that they'll do in between. So a lot of what we talk about during the follow-on sessions is their feedback, their experience. How did that go? And so we can start to break those things down and apply that as new learning, new opportunity as we move forward throughout the process. So that's the basic package. I also can do some customized things, especially when it comes to the group dynamics type work. I started doing group dynamics work. It's probably late 90s, early 2000s. So that is a real passion of mine because at that time I was actually doing two things. I was a certification trainer, so I was training trainers, and then I was also facilitating a lot of leadership classes myself. And it was always fascinating how I'm the same facilitator. It's the same content. This week you get a group of 12. Next week it's a group of 12, but it's a different group of 12. And how the dynamics of the class could be so totally different, right? So you really start to understand and you get into the different personality types and who are your alphas in the room and how you have to manage that. And so you really start to be able to drill down into those different places to manage a group from a dynamics and leadership standpoint. Those types of courses, when I get into that, there are some assessments that I actually give and have the participants take before I'll actually formulate all of the boundaries and blocks for the class so that they kind of fit exactly more the personalities and even sometimes the roles certain personalities have within the groups.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for being on today. I appreciate you. Please tell our listeners where they can find you and then how they can, register to be on the waiting list for your book coming out.
Absolutely. So the easiest way to reach me is on my website, and that's Choose Ascent. So CHOOSE, Ascent, ASCENT.com. There, you'll find my homepage, and on there you can do a couple of different things. There's a link out to my YouTube channel, so there's additional things you can find there. There's also the ability to access my calendar and book what I call a discovery call. It's a 30-minute meeting where we sit, we talk, and really determine if my coaching program is a good fit for you. It's no obligation. There is a $49 cost for that call. However, it's fully refundable should you find there's no value, there's no fit, you don't want to proceed. If you do want to proceed, I'll take that money and I'll add that to the fee for the actual coaching program itself. So no risk to you, no obligation to you. And then the last thing that's on there currently is a pre-order for the book. And the book right now looks like it's going to be dropping in March. And again, that's Choose to Master, Connect, Thrive. In that book, you will learn 12 different techniques that I use to move yourself through what I'm calling the inner game, the outer game, and your legacy. So it has the broad spectrum of that all the way throughout the book. That's the easiest way to reach me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Super thankful for both Derek and Brian for being here. And I wanted to give a shout out to our sponsor for this podcast, Mutual Aid Network. So everyone has talents, and Mutual Aid Network was built so we could help trade our talents with each other around the world. Not everyone has the finances, so we're all always able to give back in this nonprofit, which has been amazing. So I'm super thankful for this podcast and Mutual Aid Network. And the way that I'm able to give back is during the pandemic, I started doing Zoom karaoke. So just bringing people from all around the world to be able to come and sing and listen to music. And we've had famous singers, a cappella singers, like different artists. They play their instruments, and it's just so fascinating to meet people all around the world at our mutual aid network events. And I also am a promoter for Frequence. So I wanted to give a shout out to Frequence. We have a new product called creatine, and it's a clean bio frequency infused supplement that helps to support strength and energy and mental clarity. What makes Frequence different is all of our products are infused with 11 harmonic frequencies. So it's just to help raise our frequency and vibration so we feel better. And I recently found out yesterday that creatine not only helps with muscle, it helps with the brain. So brain function is just huge. And so if you're looking for something that will help support your muscles and your brain infused with 11 harmonic frequencies, I would love to speak with you about Frequence. I'm Marilyn Lamer, and this is a World of Nutrition podcast. We'll see